Very good morning together. Thanks a lot for coming here in the very early morning for our keynote session. Also, secondly, thank you very much for the Austrade, for IMARC, to allow me here to be on the stage and to bring from the automotive industry perspective our vision, what is about decarbonization process. Before starting with the presentation, a quick introduction of myself. My name is Maurício Jankoski da Cunha, and myself, together with my team, one part of the team is here. We are responsible for the group procurement for raw materials on Volkswagen AG, with the headquarters in Germany. And within the next 50 minutes, I'm pleased here to show you some initiatives from our perspective as a downstream player alongside the complete value chain for raw materials, to show some aspects in the decarbonization with focus on innovation, circularity, and collaboration methods. So before we start with the presentation, a very quick introduction, what is about Volkswagen for the ones who are not confident with all details about the company. Volkswagen Group is the second biggest vehicle group or automotive group worldwide, consisting on 13 different brands, spread in 4 different divisions. Seeing here for the model overview, we are talking about production from motorcycles until buses and trucks. We are approaching above 650,000 employees worldwide. We have over the 5 continents more than 100 manufacturing sites. We produced, as per our report last year, above 9 million vehicles. And last not least, we have current on the streets about 370 different vehicle models. Some of them you can see here on the slide. What is our starting point for today? We are talking about decarbonization. That's the central point of discussion. Our starting point here is just to focus very strongly on the scope of raw materials and to see how representative the raw material is and will be for the complete LCA, also for the complete life cycle assessment for our vehicles. Over the 3 bars, we can see here different car models, starting with electrified vehicle, going further with some ICEs, also in version diesel and gasoline. And you can see practically that in one hand, we are doing a very good job in terms of overall CO2 footprint, reducing through the transformation from ICEs to electrical vehicles massively on the contribution of CO2 footprint. However, the contribution alone, as a standalone for the raw materials, is getting higher. Previously, for the ICEs, represented about 10% of the complete CO2 footprint inside a car. And now going in direction of electrification, we are representing this charge or this share of CO2 footprint above 40%. Therefore, that's our focus right now, to see how can we find a solution to bring not only overall a better CO2 footprint for our vehicles, but also in the standalone, in the individual drivers alongside the complete composition of the CO2 footprint, to reduce also the carbonization level of the electrified vehicles. Moving a little bit more in details, which are the biggest impact of the raw materials for the electrified vehicles. Here we can see 4 of the raw materials: steel or iron, aluminum, lithium, and plastics. What is here a matter of fact is to look at not necessarily raw materials with their biggest CO2 footprint are for us, in the end, the ones with the biggest impact in the complete overall consideration of the vehicle. Example is for iron, that individually doesn't have a huge CO2 footprint. However, due to their huge usage over our cars, about 1 ton of iron used per vehicle, we have done a considerable footprint. Looking just for these 4 raw materials, we are considering already 70% of the overall raw material footprint. And therefore, that's our main focus as a Volkswagen Group, to focus basically on these 4 raw material groups and try to find sustainable solutions to lower the carbonization level. Apart from our internal job, what we have also is the push or the motivation, I would say more political correct here, is the motivation from some governments and institutions bringing some laws and regulations to push for us the circularity in our supply chain. Here are some examples what we have in Europe right now, some regulations already in force, for example, the definition of the framework for circular materials as planned in the actual plan already 2020. And we have some long-term initiatives, for example, the end-of-life vehicle regulation, focusing in 2032 the usage of about 25% of circular materials for the plastics, which represents for us about 80 kilograms of plastic recyclate that you have to bring for every car sold in Europe. Therefore, here the basic question for today's keynote, why is decarbonization so relevant for us and overall for the automotive industry? Firstly, as I showed before, we have high carbon footprint materials, so really energy and production CO2 intensive materials that we need definitely to care about it. The second is the effect of the transformation, ICE and electrical vehicles, increasing the demand of raw materials and therefore for CO2 footprint. In another hand, we know that bringing decarbonization on the supply chain brings for us, as a car producer, benefits or reduction or eventual penalties in terms of regulation compliance. But the most important thing is also to build with our customers confidence that they are buying sustainable products, products who are contributing for the reduction of the CO2 footprint. And last but not least, the overall result of all of these reasons is, in the end, to bring then a reduction of our environment impact and bring for us a more sustainable and feasible world. The action plan for that, as I shown in the first slide in the presentation, is based practically in 3 different pillars of action: innovation, circularity, and collaboration. And within the next slides, I will introduce you some deep dives, which practices are we bringing right now in our company. Before we start with the examples, we want just to make clear that these 3 pillars are fully integrated in our circular economy framework, or also called as circular economy strategies, a group established circularity strategy, overarching different segments coming from the production, for example, with the zero impact factory, going until the parts division with usage of reused parts. And the highlighted areas show us on the aspect, on the scope of raw material, in which blocks of our overall strategy, the topics innovation, circularity, and collaboration is integrated. That means we have a full coverage all over different pillars in our strategy. For the innovation, what is about innovation from our perspective as a car maker? Innovation is not only to discuss about innovative materials, to discuss about innovative technologies, to discuss about maybe reduction of certain critical CO2 footprint raw materials in our supply chain, but also the usage of new technologies and AI also in the optimization of transport ways, logistic concept, and transported quantities of raw materials. As a good example now for innovation, I think a very known topic for most of you here in Plenum, the topic green steel. Green steel as a whole is already in Europe for us a very established technology, using hydrogen mostly as an energy feedstock for the production of new steel, adding also the possibility to apply scrap material, secondary material for steel. Looking in the current production in Europe, we have more than enough production of green steel. However, the problem is in the automotive industry, the application of those materials is quite restricted due to safety and durability concerns. Benefits that you can find off there is reduction of CO2 footprint up to 95% on the complete production process. What we are doing as a company is working very strongly on the partnership with some steel companies. Here we can see 3 examples in a very short term. The one starting now in the end of the year with Salzgitter AG, and then moving forward until 2028 with a MOU that you have signed last year with ThyssenKrupp, one of the biggest steel producers worldwide, focusing in the production of low steel carbon in our house parts. Another topic very important for the innovation is the definition of some hotspot parts, also the most suitable parts from our perspective, technically seen for the circularity. Here an example for plastic is what is not classically a raw material per se. However, it's of course a big contribution in our CO2 footprint. And you see here the job currently from our technical department is to find then some alternatives, looking for aspects which can fulfill or will fulfill exterior aspects as well as interior aspects, and also some common aspects, for example, paintability and scratch resistance of the parts, without taking to the side the prioritization to apply as good as possible circular materials. So we need to apply circular materials, but on the other hand, we need to care about also the technical aspects in order to bring the cars a certain quality level suitable for our customers. Second pillar, circularity. Here, the topic very short summarized. It's our vision to see with so few primary materials as possible to generate as much as possible secondary materials. This means for us, as a good example in the practice, some practices that we are already conducting since a couple of years in our house production for some powertrain parts. Currently, we are dealing in the complete group with more than 400,000 different parts that yearly we are bringing back on our circularity, so using for the first time and make a reconditioning process to make these parts be used once again for our in-house production and therefore to be applied in our new cars. As you can see, the benefits of this return rate of 97% of these parts bring us benefits for the energy and CO2 footprint of above 50%. Second topic is that we are not only focused on the parts itself, but also for the tools which are behind the production of the car parts, investing a lot of refurbishment process. And as a matter of fact, since 2009, so 15 years ago, we are having an average of every year 160,000 tools that we are refurbishing every year, bringing also a massive contribution for the CO2 reduction. Collaboration, third point of our pillar, quite clear. We want to make business with all possible members alongside the supply chain. We want to pursue all players from upstream to downstream. Therefore, collaboration is key for us. Here graphically represented our vision. So what is actually our biggest intention now with the establishment of the group raw material procurement is to get rid from this classical purchasing or procurement process, very strong focus on tier one suppliers and trying to explore positively as good as possible alongside the value chain until going to the mining level. And therefore here is important to be in touch with you and to get to know you and to get from you also some initiatives, how can you optimize a CO2 footprint on it. The partnership model for us, it's basic on strategy levers. So the first lever that we want definitely to discuss with all members on this value chain is to secure the feedstock. Now, in some cases we have this open loop approach, looking on open waste management, but also through closed loop, looking on the return of end-of-life vehicles and therefore to bring 100% circularity of our materials. Another topic that we value very with our potential partners is to discuss some potential leverage in terms of scale effect and to looking for the volumes that you saw before in my presentation with 9 million cars, how can we generate enough leverage to reduce some operative costs, to reduce manufacturing costs, but also to reduce mostly transport costs when we are talking about bigger quantities of materials. And last not least, the value chain steering is quite important, bringing us, for all members or all stakeholders, more transparency in the supply chain and are now allowing us to understand which difficulties we have in one another step in terms of CO2 footprint and how can we together work on the optimization. a global view right now, which scope of materials and parts are we dealing now in the group raw material procurement. So as a total, we are dealing with 13 different raw material groups. We have here, they still not represented in the overview because it's now dealt in a separated organization, as well as on the right side on the slide, the e-raw materials is also handled by the colleagues of Center of Excellence. It's one separated division for Volkswagen. And for us, what is important is not only to secure sustainability and circularity and decarbonization on the raw materials, but also to identify where those raw materials are running in the end of the value chain. And therefore, in the overview here, you can see which are the most potential parts called by us as hotspot parts that definitely in this teamwork model, we need also to engage the respective Tier 1 suppliers who are responsible finally for the production of those parts. And finally, that's here my final message to you here today. Let's collaborate, let's circulate, and let's innovate together. Our aim is here definitely to go deep in the supply chain, to get to know you, to understand which ideas, which visions we have, to work together with us, to be a suitable, a reliable, and constructive raw material supplier from the upstream, midstream, and downstream. And as a consequence, also to have innovative and creative solutions to bring us better circularity and therefore to allow us to achieve our internal, external, and customer expectations in terms of circularity, environmental aspects, and recycling. I thank a lot for the time. Sorry that I need to rush through the slides. It was a lot of presentations. I know that I speak a little bit fast, but I think it was for me important to bring a lot of input from all of you. I'm really looking forward after here the presentation to be in touch with one another colleague here in order to have a better exchange of our intentions and also to understand from your side your expectations. Thanks a lot for your attention. Have a lot of fun in today's day here in the IMARC, and all the best for you and stay healthy. Thank you.